welcome back to my channel. So this video I kind of just wanted to talk about mostly things to remember when big life changes happen. Recently, within the past month, I was put in a position where I had to flip my entire life upside down, and I lost a lot of money, and I lost people and things. And when things like that happen in life, I think it's important to remember things whilst you're going through this transitional period. I feel like a lot of times when we're in the moment and everything's happening, it's really hard to remember these things. And even sometimes after, I feel like we kind of lose track, and we're kind of like, oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know who I am. I don't know, what the next thing is. And I think I just want to remind everybody what to do when things change. And I wrote down some bullet points so that I could stay on topic, but I just feel like I needed to make this video because I feel like maybe this was something that I needed to watch when I was going through what I went through. So the first thing is that change is not the end, it is a transition. Okay, red lights and yellow lights stop us and slow us down, but eventually the lights will turn green. Eventually you will start moving forward again and progressing, right? It doesn't really matter in what direction, as long as it's a direction to start out with, and you can always change directions later on if you decide that maybe I should went in another direction, right? I think choosing a direction, any direction, is better than staying still and not choosing a direction. Again, it's not an end. It is just a pivoting point, right? It's a transition, okay? It is not the end all be all. It will be a very small blip in your vast life. And remember to grieve when you're, going through this stuff, because it always comes with change, even good change. There's still grief. You're still grieving your old self, your past habits, your old environment, right? And I think it's really important to grieve it and leave it in the past. You can also take some things with you, right? But the majority of it, you have to leave room for new opportunities, new experiences, new environments, new people. If you brought too much of the past with you, it would ultimately end you right back up where you started. And so that's why I say to grieve it. Let yourself sit in it. It's uncomfortable, it sucks, it's shitty, and it's necessary. Because if you don't do it now, and you just hit the ground running and you keep going and you keep going and you don't think about it, but eventually it's going to come back up again. It always does, from my experience. And I think it's better just to deal with it from the get-go, feel everything, do all the things, and then just transition to letting it go, right? Let it fade, because that's what it is. Now it's just a past, right? It's a memory. It's a thing that you cannot change, nor can you go back to. Even if you wanted to go back to it, it still wouldn't be the same. That's always something to keep in mind as well. Which leads me into my next point. Some things you just have to pause, and you can't necessarily rush to fix it. I came back to North Carolina, and I hit the ground running. I was like, I can't think about these things right now. I need to get a car. That's my first thing. I need to get a car, and I need to get it now. And, I started looking at all these, dealerships and everything, and I was going to just buy the first one that I saw, right? Because I was just I was so over it, and I didn't want to be here, and I just wanted to move forward. But, the first one that I saw, I just had a gut feeling. I was like, this is just not it. It's just not it, and I don't have a good feeling about this. So, you have to, again, accept it, pause, really think for a second what you want to do, how you want to do it, how you want to accomplish it and achieve it. And then from that point, then you can go ahead and start progressing start, doing it. You have to, if you hit the ground running, you have to do it in a very strategic way and make sure that you've thought about it thoroughly before you start running, And something with me is that like, I'm a fast processor because I'm always thinking all the time, right? And so I feel like I'm always 5 steps ahead. So, when I came back here, I was like, okay, I thought out of a plan. I knew what kind of car I wanted to get. I had all these things lined up. So, but if you're not like that and it takes you a bit to process things and to think about what you really want to do next, don't rush to fix it. Don't rush. Because when you rush, that's when mistakes are made again. And then it just leads down to the same thing, right? Just more grief you have to have. Allow your time to replay everything that just happened, right? To really process emotionally and mentally, right? Even like do some shadow work, do some journaling, right? Some things that might have worked, some things that you probably will change going forward, some things that, you need to work on yourself, and, some things that, your needs, right? Sometimes they're not met in past things, and sometimes they need to be, met by something, some environment maybe not be suiting you, or a person, or, a friend, whatever. I think it's really important to really sit, replay, and process everything emotionally, mentally, and I think that will ultimately prepare you for the future, what you want and what you don't want. And I think that gets you to the goal of where you want to be. Narrowing down what you want and what you don't want. Stillness is difficult, but it is better to deal with it in a certain environment. So for me, the way I do best processing my thoughts, my feelings, my emotions is when I'm not in a house, when I'm not in some environment that's familiar. I need like an unfamiliar environment, like and trees. So like a forest of some sort, a park, some nature, right? I need to just feel like I can breathe, and then like also have a feeling of safety. But like when I'm at my parents' house, or whatever, like I don't feel like it's mine, and I feel very cluttered, and like all the things that I have to do, and I just don't think clearly. So when I take myself out of that environment, I put myself in another environment, it helps create that sense of like, okay, I'm here by myself, like it's my space, it's, and then it just helps me process a lot better. So when you sit still, which is really hard to do, especially after a really intense, hard time, when you sit still, choose a place that you feel safe, that you feel that is yours, and you feel like you're the most mentally prepared to deal with whatever you got going on inside you. So for me, that is nature, some form of nature. I don't want to see a human body in sight. I don't want to look about it. I don't want to worry about it. I don't want any of that. I just want to be with the trees, the natures, the animals, the bugs, and myself, honestly. And that really helps me. So be very aware where you process and how you process environmentally. Let go of the old timeline. What you expected is gone. It's hard, and clinging to it is even harder. So, like I said, when you process things, you gotta let it go. And it's really, really hard, because sometimes those memories were really, really good, and you wanna remember it for a long time. But sometimes bringing up those happy memories make you sad, because the nostalgia of it, right? And nostalgia kills a lot of people, I'll tell you that much. But sometimes you just have to let go of the feeling of it being real anymore. Like for me, I detach myself from it by thinking like it's not real anymore. Like that part of me is not, it doesn't exist, right? It's not even in the same solar system at this point. And so by detaching from it that way, I find that it helps really just letting it go, letting the past be the past, and certain things like that. And it's difficult for me as a filmmaker, right? And as a travel videographer, because sometimes you travel with people and those people are not with you anymore. And so you kind of have to find ways to be okay with, using some of that footage that you knew you were in a place with them in. And it's interesting as a videographer having to kind of comb through those things and those hard drives and, you know, those memories. It's difficult. It really is a brain fuck. Ultimately, detaching yourself is mainly the thing that is going to help you just let go. New chapters need new expectations, not old ones. They need new flexibilities, again, not old ones. So you can't start the next chapter if you keep rereading the old one. It's the whole thing of letting it go. And if you keep rethinking about it and you keep thinking about everything else that is happening, that you wish you could have done, that you wish you should have said, that you wish to repeat it, right? If you keep rethinking about the same things and the same scenarios and the same situations and like all the things that you should have done and you should and you did this and, you know, you can't change it regardless. It's something that you cannot change. And really like honing in on that fact of like what is done is done. You can't torture yourself anymore because it's not fair to you. It's not fair to you. What happened, happened, and it happened for a reason. And you have to believe that even if you don't know that reason still exists and still there, and the universe is still working for you in some way, shape, or form. Because who knows? The new chapter may be even better than the old one, but you have to take the risk and turn the page to find out. So I think it's really important to take the risk, you know? I find that I live my life based off of risks, right? How many risks can you take? Because nothing good ever happens without risk. And the hard part, starting a new chapter, is very exciting, right? It's very nerve-wracking, but you know, sometimes the nervousness and excitement, sometimes those emotions get mixed in your brain. And you think it's nervousness, but it's actually excitement. So always think about that. And like I said, you may like the new chapter a lot more than the old one. You just don't know yet. Another point that I wrote down is that it's okay to not have the answers yet. I think we should, as a society, normalize discomfort of uncertainty. Everyone's always like, oh, you have it all together. Oh, I'm trying to get my life together. Oh, I'm trying to, you know, get everything together. Like, I feel so unorganized. But like, honestly, that is everybody. Nobody knows what they're doing. You know, it's just the uncertainty of life that's always happening, no matter what, right? And I feel like no matter what chapter we enter in whatever part of our lives, nobody's gonna have it all together. Like, no one has it together. You know, they may have some parts figured out, like a job or a house or, you know, a relationship or whatever, but like ultimately at the end of the day, they're still stressing about, you know, whatever part of their life is that isn't up to par, right? Or, you know, society standard or whatever the case may be, right? Whatever they want. Everyone is always trying to find some sort of answers, and every single person on this earth is living with some type of uncertainty. Some of it may be greater than others, right? There's people in the other country that are uncertain if they're even going to live another day or not. Like, that's how, you know, I'm not trying to belittle anything or anyone's like feelings in terms of, you know, uncertainty and whatnot, but I'm just saying, I'm going to an extreme here to prove a point, right? Is that like every single person has and deals with uncertainty. Clarity often comes after surrendering, not before. So you have to surrender to the idea that everything is uncertain, right? And then once you do that, a lot more things start opening up to you. You become more aware of things, and you start finding smaller answers that perhaps may lead to the bigger one. Another thing that I have is anchor yourself in small daily routines. This is something that I do all the time, and it's also because I have, you know, ADHD, and I have to basically function off of routines, right? I have a routine every morning, right? I, drink coffee, I eat breakfast, I watch a little bit of like YouTube or like some movies or a show, and then I, brush my teeth, get ready, and I go edit, or I, go work on some camera stuff, right? So that routine is solid, right? That's my everyday. And then after that, some of that camera stuff, I go for a walk, or I work out, or I, do something physical. So, and even that within itself, those workout routines, the things that I do on a daily basis, like everything has a routine, and I find it so comforting because no matter where I go, no matter what I do, I always have these routines, and it makes me feel like I have my head on straight. It makes me feel like I can control something, right? That little bit of control goes a really long way when you feel so out of control. And it helps reclaim that control for you, especially if you've lost a lot of things. Like there's not many things we can control in our life, but the small things we do can really have that big impact. So finding the small routines in life is something that can be very, very impactful in your day. Something that I do is I remind myself that my worth is not defined by my circumstances, right? So core values always remain the same no matter what you do, right? You always have your values that you base your decisions off of. Whether you realize you have like these values or not, you always go off of your personal values. And because of the circumstances or the environment or the people around you, it does not define you. You define you and how you function and how you work and what you value to yourself, right? What's important to you. And, even though we are put in situations that put stress and pressure on us, it still does not define our worth, because our worth is determined by our values, not by circumstances, situations, or environments. Going off of that, change can really challenge your identity, right? And by reminding yourself that you have values and you have things that you base your decision off of, it really creates that sense of self. And again, that's that control, right? And it's that anchor, right? You focus on the next step ahead of you. That's what you can control right now at the moment. And so it stabilizes you in a time of instability. And that is something that I rely heavily on. Another thing I remember is that a lot of growth happens in discomfort. Reflecting on past challenges, how you dealt with them and what they taught you. Reflecting on those things and learning about how you reacted, how you did, those certain challenges, right? How you functioned. And by going back and looking at all these things and reviewing them, you now have ammunition, right, for the future when you see the same situation arise, right? What are you going to do differently now? What are you going to do now that you've been through this situation if it happens again? Or maybe where you can prevent the same thing from happening in the future. So by reflecting and really focusing on past things, past challenges, it really helps you understand yourself, understand how you function, how you work. And again, I think that also creates a sense of self. And that's where most of the growth happens, in the uncomfortable, in the uncertainty. And another thing that I do, lastly, is I rebuild intentionally. I have intention behind everything that I say, everything that I think. There's always intention around something. And for me, it's just like, now, where I am now, what do I want to bring with me from what I just learned, right? What do I want to leave behind, right? Because ultimately, the situations that we were in, that were hard, that were challenging, that made us flip our lives upside down, those make or break you, right? That is a part of you now. You are stronger because of it. And, by asking yourself, what do I want to bring from this experience into the future with me, right? What do I want to leave behind? Am I going to let this control and dictate, the rest of my decision making or the rest of my life, So by rebuilding intentionally, by asking yourself a lot of questions, why do I do this? What is bringing me to this conclusion? What do I need to do in the future so that this doesn't happen? By asking yourself these questions and rebuilding intentionally and, deciding that, I'm going to wait to buy a car and, look around more to see if I can find the perfect fit, right? Because my why is because I want a good, reliable car that I know can take me around the US. So by intentionally having reason behind everything that you do, it puts you in a place of, again, feeling more comfortable with yourself because you now have these things, these reasons that are backing you as to how you want to move forward. Why, what you want to do when you move forward. And I think ultimately that rebuilding intentionally sets you up for a really good future and a really good next chapter. And that this whole thing that happened, this will shape you in ways that you can't even see yet. That is also something to remember. It will shape you in ways that you haven't even thought about yet. But you'll look back on it and you'll be like, oh wow, I really learned this, or oh wow, I did this and that worked, or maybe I shouldn't do this again because this happened. You know what I mean? So by going through these really hard times in life, by really understanding, why we go through these things and how we rebuild while we go through these things, it's very impactful, right? And you learn a lot about yourself going through these big life changes. And it's hard and it sucks. But ultimately, you are smarter because of it, and you're stronger, and you're more capable of doing more things after everything has happened. So if you're going through something hard, if you're, not in a position where you want to be in right now, and if you're dealing with the uncomfortable uncertainty, I'm right there with you. And we're just going to figure this out together. But that's the fun part, I guess, right? About life is that you never know what's going to happen until it happens, and then you just kind of have to figure it out. I used to hate those words, figure it out. What does that even mean? But it's true. We just go and we take one step at a time and we figure it out. So, everything is linked down in the description below, including my Patreon page. So if you want to go support me, I post, journal entries, photos, videos, all that kind of stuff on my Patreon page. If you want to go support, link down in the description below. And yeah, give it a like, share, comment, subscribe. It's all free. And I'll see you guys all in the next video. Thank you guys for listening and watching, and hopefully relating. I'd love to know your opinions in the comments, and I'll be down there too. So yeah, peace out, enjoy life, live it up.